Did Neck Deep change anything, like for the label in that sort of sense? I think they were the first UK sign-in that sort of went global for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think when we walked in, I was telling the story, but I think when we signed Neck Deep, there was this sort of feeling like, I don't think that's going to work for you. And there's not been a pop punk band that works in the UK or something like this. And, the story I had heard is they stopped over in Florida on their way to Australia and sold out a huge garage. And I was like, what the heck is this? And I went and saw, went online. I was like, oh, these YouTube numbers are pretty wacky. Um, and I think my first thought was like, there's going to be so many people, there's going to be so much competition. And I called the manager and we got to know each other and got to know the band, and it really wasn't. And, we got into business with them. And I think that first tour, like we helped fund and put together this tour for the band to headline in the US. And, big one up to Nick Storch, their agent, who put a lot of effort into this and booking them in these small rooms. And, the experiment was, can we make this band quite big in the US right off the bat and then send them back? And, in a sort of grand sense of the thing. And, went to the Wonder Years guys, will you please take Neck Deep out in the UK? No one else is taking them out. And they did. And I know they just did the tour recently. I was there in January, and it was so nice to have Soupy stand on stage and go, we took this band out and here they're taking us out. And like, there's never been a nicer group of guys that would like return the favor later on, and it's true. It's really a beautiful thing. In the sense of changing for us, like, I think that Hopeless is always, we're going to show everyone that they're a little wrong about a band. It didn't change much there. But in the sense of like, can you make a UK band that from Wales that is pop punk, a global phenomenon? Yeah, we proved that point. And I think that that's continues to get proven and is quite an amazing feat. And again, I always want to say, these bands have to do a lot of this work. They put a lot of time, effort, and stress into it. But it's been amazing to be a part of it.
I guess they're looking at that thing of it being like, there'd never been a pop punk band from the UK that had done it, and these are the first one. Do you think if it hadn't have been Hopeless coming in with the plan of bringing them to America, that another label could have done that with the band?
I mean, anything's possible, but they didn't. So, in the multiverse theory, I'm sure as soon as I can travel through wormholes, I'll let you know. Look, again, I always want to say, whether it's an All-Time Low or a Neck Deep or any of the artists we've worked on, right? These bands put a lot of effort and time in, and I don't, I think that labels, the job is to magnify that connection that an artist has with a fan, right? They're doing the hard work. Do I think that someone else could have done the job? Anything's possible. Do I think that we had plans that ultimately worked out? Yes. Am I proud of that work we did? Did we have some, we should do this and it didn't work? Sure. That's going to happen with any project we work on. But I think, as I've used the phrase tall tale all day, which might be a real Americanism here, but in the sort of light of history, saying like, hey, the band came into this amazing headline tour in the US and sold it all out. And that story that we started selling, like, you're not paying attention to this band kicking ass. And they went and, opened up, they were direct support on their second US tour for Real Friends, who were having a huge moment at that time. And by the time they were doing their world tour with state champs, we were still telling people like, hey, better start paying attention, and maybe there's a different answer here, but it was really out of the case of like, we love to build relationships at Hopeless and have those great relationships and go tell people you've got to pay attention to this. Is it possible? Sure. I have no way of knowing, but I know the work we did, I'm really proud of.
Was the Warped Tour sort of important for Neck Deep and growing the band?
Warped Tour is important for a lot of bands. You definitely feel with Warped Tour being gone, that missing piece out there.
Has that changed the landscape for you having to do things differently?
Yeah, in a lot of ways. I think that, Kevin, who started Warped, is a close friend. I'm partnered with him on another project called Summer School. And yeah, I mean, I think that, hopefully Kevin knows how grateful we are to him. I think that the idea was that, okay, a part of that planning was, when are you going to put your record out and how are we going to get you on Warped Tour? You're going to be in front of, 8 to 20,000 people, depending on where you're at. And so much of that brand of Warped Tour was a known, and it was like, we have Warped Tour. And I think for Neck Deep, it was, they're on Warped Tour. That's very sellable commodity back here in the UK to all of the partners, like, hey, and when they went out there, the crowds for them were voracious and crazy, even on the small stages. That's what you wanted, right? Like, we're doing the Kevin Says stage and 1,000 people show up. That's a very sellable commodity, right? And you could really look at that landscape of Warped and say, we started here, we went here, and now we're headlining. Then there was the summer camp that was everybody hanging out in their buses, getting to know each other and collaborating, going on future tours. Like, it's hard to express unless you're there what Warped Tour was to that community and how it helped grow all of these artists into that When We Were Young style act, And I think that Warped going away, you missed that development piece, right? That this is all the bands on Warped Tour are, if you like one, you'll like the other type thing, right? Or at least you hope that. I think without a community summer tour like that was a traveling festival piece, you have to add a couple years into your development plans because you really got to go one at a time. And how do we headline and who are we supporting and how do we get in front of this many people and this many brands and this many fans? And even if you're not coming to Warped Tour, you've seen it, you're following it. Maybe you went last year and you're saying, I wish I went this year, look at the lineup. It was a huge piece of how we did development. And it is, in my opinion, it's a missing part of how we do development in this alt space.
What are the sort of plans then for bands replacing Warped Tour? Like, I mean, obviously, like you've just said, they have to take an extra couple of years to jump on other things. But is there something where there's like a direct replacement where it's like, we know that the process was we put them on this, and now the process is that we put them on this?
Yeah, and I mean, look, I think that there's no silver bullet for anything, right? And I think that from that era now, it is still about fan connection. That's what it was always about, was fan connection. And what has replaced that? I mean, so much of this is, I think the joke we use is touring at home. Like getting on. It's not just so much like I have to be on social media, right? That's just a tool. It's more, what is that message I'm putting out there? What is that thing that I'm saying to you? Oh man, if you grow up someday, you could be like me, sort of vibe. Like, that piece now is, how are we creating narrative and speaking to fans to make them part of this on a grander scale than just, hey, I played a 500 cap room and sold it out. That's awesome. 500 people is great, and they'll go out and do the conversation. But how do we build out that story in a way that's very shareable, that people can still feel a part of it in that way, where they're looking forward to both seeing their favorite band and going to Warped Tour, right? Or, Taste of Chaos or something like this, right? This is that now plan, and it's different for every artist, is how are we laying out music? What does that music mean? What is that visual? What is that piece? What is that ongoing narrative in between? How is it consistently being shared? And how are we magnifying that and connecting that? So much of that is in both visual and storytelling that happens a little off the road in some ways. And if that connection is happening, then we can bring that in to the, to the day-to-day, in a sense.